Welcome back to Awaken Your Authentic Self. I'm Jessica, and today we're having a conversation that I believe will touch something deep in many of you listening. You know that feeling when you look at your life from the outside and it all seems successful? The career, the accomplishments, maybe the family, the home, all the boxes, they all checked. But inside, there's this quiet emptiness. This sense of, is this really it? And you can't say it out loud because, well, who would understand? You're supposed to be grateful. You're supposed to feel fulfilled. But what if that emptiness isn't a problem to fix? What if it's actually your soul calling you home to yourself? Today's guest knows this journey intimately. Kathleen Flanagan is a #1 best-selling author of the Dancing Souls trilogy and an award-winning transformational coach, and the host of the Journey of an Awakening Spirit podcast. But more than her credentials, Kathleen speaks with a raw honesty about what it's like to move through trauma, to shed the mask of perfectionism, and to reclaim the authentic self that's been waiting beneath all that achievement. She works with high-achieving men and women who, like many of us, have learned to perform success beautifully while feeling unseen and disconnected on the inside. And in our conversation today, she's going to share not just the what of spiritual awakening, but the messy, real, vulnerable how. We're diving into visualization when you feel hopeless, receiving messages from spirit when you've only trusted logic, the faces of transformation nobody talks about, boundaries that feel sacred instead of selfish, and what soul evolution actually looks like when you're living it. So if you've been silently struggling behind the mask of having it all, this conversation is for you. Kathleen, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for having me on your show. I'm deeply grateful, and wow is all I can say about how you introduced me. It's like, wow, I'm impressed.
Well, I was impressed, and I'm so grateful that you were willing to be on our show. This is a growing community, and you're definitely a blessing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Kathleen, you teach the power of visualization, but I'm curious about a specific moment. Can you take us back to a time when you felt completely hopeless, maybe even questioning if transformation was possible for you? What did you visualize in that dark moment, and how did that vision pull you forward when everything in your external reality was screaming the opposite?
I'm going to say this was in 2011. I was just about finished with the books, and my books are about my journey of an awakening. And we didn't have the words today, but you read it, you know what the words today are. And it was early 2011. My mother died, and I had to face a lot of things during that period. I wanted to die. I was so close to death because I had finally reached the other side. It's when I found my light, but when I found my light, I also found a deep, painful truth that I didn't fully know or comprehend yet. And when my mother died, I spent time of like, who are these friggin' people? We're talking about my siblings.
Right.
We weren't taught this. And then it was like Spirit said, no, you weren't taught this because this isn't you. This is them. And I had to face another separation. And I didn't have a job. I was in war with my business partner at that period of time. I didn't know how to pay my rent. I was asking the utility companies. I was reaching out to everyone to help me during this period of time. And thank God I had a friend who lent me money for 2 months because she's like, I love your place and I want you to keep it. So she gave me the rent money, which was the beginning of seeing that. And then a friend had given me an astrology reading, I think it was, or a psychic reading, which I hadn't had in forever. And she just kept saying, hang on, hang on, hang on. The party's just beginning, because she knew I was so close to death. And I was willing myself. I felt hopelessness. I felt I reached out to people because I can do a lot of different things. And I reached out and said, I wasn't asking for money. I was saying, I can help you. I can do this. I can do this. Please help me. Just help me.
Right.
And nobody would. And, so of course you feel like, well, why am I here? Nobody cares about me.
Right.
And it was so deeply, like, you can tell it's still there.
It's still, I can feel, I can hear, I can feel that from you.
It's a very intense emotion when you think nobody cares about you and you've done nothing but pour your heart out to people and all of this. And so it was that will to die was so incredibly strong. And I just remember when I wasn't going to get any help anywhere and it felt like everybody was taking money from me and I just felt like I was still being punched left and right.
Wow.
And I sat on my couch and I remember looking up and I know that the Archangel Ariel was there. And she told me, I want you to get in the tub and I want you to use this and we're going to do sound because I do sound therapy.
Oh, nice.
And I want you to do this. And I said, okay. Well, I did what she said. And what I did is I got in the tub and I put essential oils in it. And then I took my tuning forks and hit the water. And I swear to God, that first fork, when it hit the water, my whole brain went like I realigned. And the depth of that depression was gone.
Wow.
From that. And then I just remember sitting there of, okay, just visualize living. You're going to be living in a Buick down by the river. That's where I went. Because our mind doesn't know the difference.
Right.
So I visualized that, and it was like, okay, this is the worst of the worst. And then it was like, well, what do you want? I want to make this much money. I want a job. I want this, blah, 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 blah. And I just sat there on my couch, visualizing what I wanted.
Right.
It's because I already knew what I didn't want because I already lived it, in this visualization. And I said this to people for years and they thought I was crazy, except for I actually found the truth in that. It's really true.
Right.
And then I said, no, this is what I want. Within 10 months, I was at $100,000. I didn't have to worry about anything anymore. Life had turned around, but I just stuck to my guns and just believed with every ounce of my being that I could change this. Because I knew I had the control in my mind. I just didn't believe I had it, especially coming from the depth of despair that I was in. And there were people that I never even met would just say, hang on, just hang on, just hang on. Your mother died and this is an opportunity that your heart's breaking open more. I mean, the messages I received were so different from what I had ever heard before. And I just I just put my head down and just believed.
Right.
And when I sat on the couch, knowing that I couldn't pay my rent and I'd have to make that call to my nasty landlady, and she was nasty, and just said, I will be on top. And because she beat me up. She literally beat me up. And I said, I will be on top. It will be fine. And it was.
Right.
I didn't know how it was going to be, but I just knew it was. And I just started believing that everything was going to turn around, and it did. It took, it was, one step in front of the other, but it didn't matter because all of a sudden my business partner and I worked our stuff out. And instead of working in a Medi Spa, making whatever he wanted me to make an hour, because he wanted to hire me as an employer and I didn't, but I was making so much more money doing environmental work again, that's what got me out from underneath everything so quickly because we had landed some really big accounts. And I was ready to walk away from all of it at that point. So it's just believing and just be very crystal clear on what it is that you want. And even though the head trash was running 100 miles an hour of, well, you're worthless and you're just sitting there and, you could go work at McDonald's. And it was like, and the argument was, yeah, I could work at McDonald's, but let me tell you, like $8 an hour is not going to pay
the rent,
$1,500 a month rent and utilities and everything else,
Exactly. I know that very well. Yes.
So that was how I came out from that dark side. And I was just grateful. I learned to just be, I was like, I'm so grateful I'm back in Colorado. That was the only thing I had, because that's an energy shift going into gratitude. And then the next day it was, I'm grateful I'm in Colorado and the skies are blue. And I swear that was the switch of everything, was just being grateful, even though I didn't necessarily feel it. But there was a part of me that really did feel it too at the same time.
I understand that completely. I mean, I remember there was a point with my second husband where I was taking care of him because he was sick. He had leukemia. And everything, he couldn't work anymore. It was just me. And I remember going to the supermarket with $20 and thinking, okay, this is going to get me food till Thursday, but what are we going to eat on Friday? And thinking if I had $10 more, and I would picture it, if I just had $10 more, and I go home and had a rebate check for $10 in my mailbox.
Miracles.
So, exactly. So it's like that power of visually. I was like, I was manifesting before I realized I was manifesting.
Yep.
Well,
I know.
For the high achiever who spent their whole life trusting logic, data, and external validation, how do they learn to trust those whispers from spirit? Walk us through what receiving a message from spirit actually feels like in your body. And what's the biggest mistake people make when they first start opening to spiritual guidance that causes them to dismiss those real messages?
I think the biggest mistake is we don't trust it. Because we have so much head trash that we can't hear through all of the noise. And with social media the way that it is now, I think it's even more difficult. That's why I would always recommend put the devices down and give yourself 20 minutes a day and do nothing. Write,
Agreed.
journal, yoga, or do nothing. Because that's the only way you're going to start to be able to hear the silent whispers from the inside. Now, I've always been connected to spirit and they've always talked to me, but that didn't mean I necessarily trusted them. And being the high achiever that I was, I remember arguing with them. It's like, just do this, do this, do this. And it's like, I'll give you my life if you just give me this. I was always bargaining. And I think sometimes we do that because we get stuck with what society thinks we should look like.
Right.
And I think that really outweighs our spiritual intuition more than it should.
Agreed.
So when I finally decided to leave the legal industry is when I think I really started connecting even further on a deeper level with that spiritual side. And it just really took me time to just, like, I started meditating. So that way I started to get the silence in my head going. I could hear the difference between, yes, their voice and my voice. Sometimes I can't tell the difference. Sometimes I think it's my voice. So I really had to do a lot of discernment. I had to really go deeper inside of my own body. And then I discovered this little tool by mistake. And that was ask a question when I go to bed at night and when I wake up and before I get out, 99.9% of the time, the answer drops in the morning. And I know that's not me at that moment.
I have that same experience. I love that.
Because my brain hasn't even started triggering yet.
It's true.
And I know it to be true. I've had times where I'm in the shower and all of a sudden I get this download of and I'm not thinking, I'm just sitting here going, I love my hot water.
I've often thought, why isn't you guys want to come when I'm in the shower?
Enjoyment when sometimes these things come in.
Exactly. In a place where you think that you're by yourself too, it's like, okay.
Right, exactly.
Spirit has no conscience there. They just get you when they know that your brain is quiet.
Right. And so I think that's another part. But see, I learned to really trust this, and journaling's another good way to really learn, because when I wrote my books, I journaled every single day. And as I'm journaling every day, Spirit was always coming in and dropping in a message. And I always knew when they were dropping in a message, because it was all of a sudden, it wasn't me. It was like you just knew it wasn't you. And what was even more interesting, when I took my books to the editor, he always said, I always know when spirit comes in.
Huh.
Okay, how do you know? Because I wanted to know, right?
Right.
And he said the tone's different, and I don't have to correct one word.
Interesting.
It's all perfect. And I was like, wow, really? So, because me, it's subtle.
Right.
But for him, it was very loud and clear of when it was spirit coming in and when it wasn't. And so I know that a lot of times because I can, and I say I don't use the computer because it's writing. There's something about the hand and the brain when spirit's coming in.
Okay.
And even though you're getting information faster than you can write, what you write is what you need to hear.
Okay.
Or it's the message that you need to have, because like I'm started my 4th book and it's all new information coming in, and I'm sitting here as I'm writing going, I don't know. And they're like, don't worry about it.
Right.
Okay. And then they drop another, I don't know. And they don't worry about it. So I've learned to not say that. So I would say when you're starting to get it, when you're quiet with yourself is when you face what you need to face. And sometimes it may be your demons, but just know that it's not a demon. It's your self-talk. And we have over 70,000 thoughts a day.
Right.
And 90% of them, I think I was told, were negative.
Wow.
And this comes from a neurologist, Dr. Ryan Williamson. He was on my show last week, and I was blown away by what he
that's
said.
a big number.
That's a huge number. And he said that he even has thoughts that come in that he would never share with anyone because he knows it's just garbage thoughts because of because of what the overstimuli that we're in. And so I would say when you hear that or see it, there's techniques that you can do to look at the limiting belief and then how to turn it around to stop it. I have techniques on how to do that as well.
I love that. Are there any that you can share with us in this moment?
Sure. If you have, so I have a limiting belief. Say I had a limiting belief of unworthiness, which is my biggest goal, because the biggest one I have, because we all have a primary limiting belief, and mine has been the original is is unlovable, but it always showed up as unworthy, which came from the trauma in my life. I just recently learned that probably about 3 or 4 months ago. And so I would say why I was I'm unworthy. And then you ask, well, why am I unworthy? Why are you saying that? You can look at all the things that makes you think that you're unworthy. And then you have a column of, well, look at everything of when you receive something that showed validation. And it's like, well, I'm an award-winning book author. I'm a #1 bestseller. I have this. I mean, you take those things to prove that it was a lie. And that's how you start rewiring your brain. Because it's like, well, I have people who love me in my life. I have people that have been standing by me. These are things that an unworthy person would never have.
Correct.
So what you're doing is you're pointing out of, well, what good came out of it? And it starts to rewire your brain. And an example of that, how it works, is my partner was injured on the job and I didn't know how to help him.
Right.
And there was nothing I could do. And I felt helpless because I'm usually pretty good at being able to help people through things. And I felt like a failure. And we were in the bedroom and he was holding me and I'm crying because I felt so bad. And I said, I just feel like a failure. And in my brain at that moment, Spirit said, you are anything but that. And you have the evidence to prove it.
Oh.
And it was like, that was when I said that, I was like, you're right. And oh my God, there's still this habit of thinking I'm a failure, but I know that I'm not.
Right.
So then it comes down to breaking habits and breaking patterns. So I just acknowledged what I felt, but I knew I wasn't a failure.
Right.
This isn't my lesson. It's his lesson. He has to do, and all I can do is support it. And I think that was what I had to learn, was just learn how to support him instead of trying to fix something also. So that just, to me, what it showed was I am able to rewire my brain, because why would that come up if I really still felt that? It would never have said, you are anything but a failure.
Right.
That was so powerful in that moment. I can't even tell you. It shook me to my core when I heard that.
That is very powerful. And I think that when many of us are going through this process of trying to rewire our brains, I mean, because I know that when I started my awakening, it was a process for me to change the way I spoke to myself and about myself. And in that process, when I would catch myself, I would self-correct. But then it just got to a point where you're right. It becomes a little more natural to say, okay, well, I am worthy of this, and I am a good person, and there's really nothing wrong with the way that I live my life. But then all of a sudden, a situation will come up that'll cause that little bit of doubt, that little, that little child, that inner child comes back up that was unhealed, and I think I've heard that voice tell me the same thing lately, with this whole move that we've made over here to Spain recently. We decided to get up and transfer our whole lives. And I had a moment recently, and I went to sleep with that, and I woke up with a whole message that said, you are right where you were supposed to be. And with that came confirmation, because as we spoke earlier, I had 6 matches. And so... you go to sleep thinking, am I worthy of the life that I'm living right now? And the confirmation came where I had 6 interviews being set up for me. So
yeah, you can't beat that. That's what's so really cool about trusting, because we don't know. We have to trust, and that's a hard place to go sometimes. I think for all of us is. Because it's our ego fights us and says, no, I don't know where you want to go, and I don't know it, and it's unfamiliar,
it's
and I'm going to
uncomfortable.
save you. And it wants to save us. But as Dr. Ryan had said last week, our brains are still back in the caveman days. Our brains are not wired for what we're going through today, and that's what a lot of the resistance is. Also, and it made perfect sense of why you still feel like we're the hunter-gatherers.
Right. I agree with you 100%. Oh, well, Kathleen, you've written about Transformation, Your Dancing Souls trilogy, and guided countless clients through it. Here's what I want to know. What's the face of transformation that nobody talks about? The one that doesn't look inspiring or beautiful, the one that might make someone think they're doing it wrong when they're actually right in the middle of their breakthrough.
I think when your life is such a mess is when you're in the middle of your transformation. Nothing makes sense in your world. Nothing makes sense in your life. You're a blubbering idiot 90% of the time. And even if you're showing it or not, you feel that on the inside. You're feeling lost. You're feeling confused. And yet you're still moving forward. Because if you've got a goal in mind, that goal is coming to you, and it's coming towards you, and it's moving faster than probably what you think you're capable of doing. And when you sit there and you're doing something and you have to do like all this tedious work, like techno stuff for businesses and things like that, and it's tedious, and you're sitting there going, I'm wasting my time. This is, nobody else who's making millions of dollars does this, and what's wrong with me? And and all that self-talk, and you just have to keep saying, shut up, shut up, shut up, and keep moving forward, and then realize that all that stuff that you did to build your foundation, because I still do this with myself, is that I'm building, what is it called? I'm creating a movement.
I love that.
So that means that my foundation has to be super strong. And I feel like I have been in this foundational work for the last 8 years. And yet I've seen a lot of growth in it. I'm not where I want to be, but you know what? I think I'm so close. It's almost scaring me. I think that's why I'm having hip issues right now, fear of moving forward. I don't know if that's true, but I'm beginning to think that because I know I'm so close to
Right.
where I want to be. And I think it's just telling that self-talk to just shut up and keep doing it, that if your life's a mess, God, you're moving in such a way that is so dynamic and powerful that you don't even recognize yourself. That's transformation.
Right.
You're the butterfly. You're in the cocoon where when you're in the mess, you're goo.
Right.
You're in the goo of the transformation when the caterpillar goes. He goes and he rebuilds into the butterfly. That's when I say you're in the goo of it and you don't know you. You don't recognize you. There's nothing familiar about you
Right.
to yourself. Who cares what everyone else says? They already know you're crazy. So who cares what they're
Yeah,
saying?
exactly
It's
right.
what you're saying to yourself. And then just trust and trust and trust. And always, always, always ask for help and guidance. I promise you're not alone. There are people who can help you get it, and spirit is right there. Your guides are right there helping you navigate. Always, always, always ask. If you don't ask, they can't help.
I've learned that. I believe that wholeheartedly. I mean, I've heard that. I believe that there's an angel up there for everything. And when I'm having a lot of technical issues, I don't know his name or her name, but I say angel of technology. I am
I do
having
the
this
same
issue.
thing.
Can you please help me? And literally within minutes, it's resolved.
I do the same exact thing, Jessica. I do the same thing. I go after marketing gurus right now because I suck at marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent over 20 years trying to understand this game, and I don't like the game, so I ask for the marketing gurus. And they help me to understand it better.
The marketing guru sent me my niece, who happened to have graduated college with a marketing degree. She called me the other
love
day
it.
and goes, I loved your last interview. That was great. And then I said, what did you go to college for? She goes, marketing. I said, oh my God.
I need you.
And she's so willing to help. So yes, they definitely, they need to be asked. And I say that all the time. They will sit there and they want to guide you in the right direction. Everyone wants you to succeed. Your ancestors want you to succeed. The angels want you to succeed. The spirit guides want you to succeed, but you have to ask.
Yep, it's very true.
Well, let's talk about boundaries, especially for empaths and people pleasers. And I know you, I'm sure you're one just like I was. Those people who've built their entire identity around being the strong one that everyone leans on. You teach establishing boundaries and holding them. What's the specific moment in your own journey when you realized that saying no was not selfish, it was sacred? And what happened to your relationships when you started holding those boundaries?
God, you just keep taking me back to my book, Jessica.
It's my job to get you
Because
talking.
it was in 2009, I think, when I really discovered the word boundaries and actually knew what that meant. And I was going through so much. There was a lot of darkness, evil. I was living in a vortex. Not that I knew that, but I discovered that. And there were so many entities coming in and out. And I had people who had put spells on me. I'm telling you, I was in a very dark place in Illinois during this period of time. And I wouldn't let people necessarily come around me because of what I was dealing with. And I had this one woman who was a so-called friend at the time, and she came back. It was in March, and in 2009, and she started yelling at me about, well, you did this and why this and blah, 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 blah. Now, this is like she wanted to play with the dark side, and I don't play with that at all. I know it's real. I know it exists. I know it's just energy, but it's a dark energy. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't participate in what she wanted because, I'm living in a vortex, so let's play with this. And, it played for a little bit on parts that felt safe, and I wouldn't do it. And then she just went on and on and on about everything. And I didn't say anything. I just sat there and I said, it's the way it's going to be. It's like, and I just wouldn't participate, and I held my boundaries. And it was really challenging to do that because, here I am I'm this amazing healer. I'm an empath. I'm doing all these cool things in life. I'm the Rock of Gibraltar. Excuse me. And I'm doing everything to hold myself together, and nobody knew what I was doing. And I just held my ground and said, first of all, you don't know what she really felt, and you're making crap up. And I really don't care what you feel right now because you don't understand what I'm dealing with, and I'm not going to participate in any of this. Well, she comes back, I don't know, a couple weeks later or something, and she didn't quite apologize, but she came back and said that she had gone to a psychic, and the psychic said, you need to back off from her. I guess she was complaining about me.
Right.
And she said, you need to back off with her. She is fighting and dealing with some very dark energy right now, and she's trying to protect you.
Wow.
And I just remember feeling like, okay, thank you for that. Not that I cared at that moment, but I knew what I was doing. And we didn't stay friends because when my mother died, she walked away. Because the Rock of Gibraltar was falling. So if I was falling, that means she was drowning.
Right.
That's how I interpret it. But I also realized at that point that I started becoming more and more observant of people. Like I was stepping back, as I always call it, I'm getting off the stage. Drama is on the stage. Mm-hmm. And if I need to see what's going on, get off the stage and start observing what's going on around you. And that's when the boundaries became even more prevalent for me because I could see how, as an empath, I would get caught up in stuff. I still do, don't get me wrong, but it's not like it used to be.
Right.
I back away sooner because I stay involved. When I start getting that angst inside is when it's like, okay, you're on the stage, get off. What's going on?
Listening to your
and
body.
I'll establish those boundaries. And I'm okay with that. I don't have any issues anymore. I don't have a problem saying no. I don't have a problem with a lot of that anymore. But in the beginning, it was really hard to do that because your worthiness is there. What if nobody wants to be my friend? You're insecure. But to me, this was about self-preservation. It was about, I'm trying to protect you and you're too stupid to see that. And that's okay. I understand you're ignorant. And that's how I had to talk to myself to get through this. That didn't mean I didn't like the woman. I still liked her. It's just that she was ignorant.
Well, people understand everything by their level of perception, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I gave her grace and I still was her friend and we worked through it. And she had to learn to trust because this is a woman who had no boundaries and figured she could bully her way and she couldn't bully me.
Right.
So I had to really take that whole situation and still look at what was the bigger picture here. What was her role? What was my role? What was I doing to change? And of course, if I'm changing, establishing boundaries, that makes somebody very insecure because it's
very
the crab in the
uncomfortable
bucket effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to look at that. And then I had to look at my own worthiness and deserve issues of, do you want to feel like crap the rest of your life? Or do you actually want to do something powerful and feel good about yourself for the first time in your life, girl? I mean, those were tough questions to ask myself.
Right.
And even though every bit of head trash, because this is before I learned how to get rid of the head trash, was coming in at me, and I was like, I don't care. And I just stayed the course of what I was on in this massive transformation that I was in that I did not understand. But in the books, as you're going through it, this is what we go through. This is what the masters went through. This is stepping up in our evolution from humanness to the Christ consciousness that each and every single one of us are.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And I really wish more people would understand that because that whole looking outside of themselves for stuff when everything is within,
Yep.
that was my whole last episode.
Yeah. I think I listened to that episode.
Oh, well, Kathleen, soul evolution. It is a term people love to throw around. But what does it actually mean when you're living it? For someone who's achieved all the external markers of success, but feels spiritually empty, what's the next stage of their soul's evolution look like? And here's the hard question. What do they have to be willing to let die? What identity, what relationship, what version of themselves to make space for that evolution?
Wow, you asked some really good, tough questions there, Jessica. I think when I asked that question, I just wanted to be a better person. I wanted the outside and the inside to come together because I was so incredibly disconnected and it was so hard to keep the mask on. It was one of the hardest things to do. And I think it was when I met Sal, who's my partner now, I wanted to be better because it was like the first time I met somebody who was just really a genuine, nice person. He didn't ask anything. He didn't take my energy. He didn't try to overpower me. He didn't do any of it. It was 100% acceptance. And I think that's when I realized I can't even do that for myself. And so the only thing I said is I wanted to be a better person. And that's what led me down the path that I am. That's what wrote the books. There were times where I told God he should just kill all of us, including myself, because I don't think we deserve to live. That's how dark and deep it went for me on this, because I realized I cannot love like he loves, because I was realizing all this stuff inside of me of the limitations that I have. Now, maybe that spiritual side's a little different, but that human side was so tiny and compact. And when you start that, you start seeing the atrocities of the world, and they hurt really bad. When you start seeing what we do to humans, what we do to animals, what we do to our environment, it starts to feel painful. And so it's about navigating through that pain as well, but you're staying the course of what you want, because that disconnect really bothered me. I couldn't understand what that disconnect was. So I was working on coming into alignment with body, mind, spirit, soul connection. When I saw my light and was enlightened, so to speak, that didn't mean that everything was handed to me on a silver platter. God knows I would have loved that, but no, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, they don't make it that easy for us, do they?
No, they don't make it that easy for us at all. But what I did realize that, because we look at Christ, we look at Buddha, we look at Krishna, we look at all the masters that were before us, and we think that it was like a magic wand, where it wasn't, because what I love is I know Jesus was tortured because he was dealing with Satan all the time. And so he was always letting him see the dark shadows of himself that he still had to face. And you think Buddha had an easy life when the man walked away from opulent wealth? Seriously? You think that was easy for him when he was not getting any food in the beginning?
Right.
That's what I say to people, because they're still human. I'm still human. I still have to deal with paying my mortgage. And believe me, when you're in that enlightened state, it's really hard. You got to figure out how to pay the mortgage when you're not there.
Right.
And I remember what my goal was, is I wanted, what would my higher self, what would my future self look like? And that's how I lived, how would my future self look like and act and be and say, to help me move through this transformation. And I remember seeing her. I was getting on a call and I remember seeing her, and it was like, I want to be her. And I leaned into her. And then she came in about a week later. I thought it was my future self. No, it was my higher self that came in. I'm like, okay, now where do you go from here? And it was the energy. It's just what it is that I've become even more of a recluse. I still go out in the world. I still do, my podcasts and all that, but there's this more of a deeper silence, quiet place that I live in. Nothing's easy for me, trust me, because that's not what the goal of soul evolution's about. It's about remembering who you are. Mm-hmm. It's about taking that love that we are, that compassion, that empathetic portion of us, and being that for somebody else, helping somebody come out of the mud.
Being of service, absolutely.
So to speak. Mm-hmm. And that's where I go. So my empathy, because I am an empath, and believe me, I'm a true empath because when I was younger and took people's pain away, it was on my body, and then people had to help me. So I had to learn how to manage that. But that's, to me, is what the soul evolution is when you aren't just about you. Because yes, do I want to make money? Do I want to pay my mortgage? Of course I do. But that's not my main focus,
right.
Isn't money. My main focus was and has always been about helping people remember who they are. But see, I had to remember who I was to be able to guide them.
Right.
So the evolution of your soul is more about you becoming bigger and better. And when you can step into that and be comfortable with it, that's when I think all the magic happens along the way, don't get me wrong. But I think like the biggest dreams that you wanted that you probably couldn't even fathom will happen to you. That's what I believe.
I love that. Kathleen, oh my goodness. I have to say, this conversation has been such a gift. I know our listeners are going to return to this episode again and again because of what you shared with us today. It's not just information, it's actually permission. Permission to acknowledge the emptiness, to trust the whispers, to let parts of ourselves die so soul can evolve. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your vulnerability and your wisdom.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for having me. I really do appreciate it. I support what you do, and I think this is so important that we're way showers in my mind. And the way showers need to connect to shine the light so brightly so the world changes.
Oh, thank you. Now, if you're listening to this and something Kathleen shared resonated deep in your bones, if you felt that yes in your body, I want you to do something right now. Don't let this just be another podcast episode you consume and forget. Here's your invitation. First, I want you to connect with Kathleen. Her links are all going to be in the description below. Check out her Dancing Souls trilogy. Explore her podcast, The Journey of an Awakening Spirit. And if you are ready for that kind of transformational support she offers, reach out. Sometimes the universe puts the right guide in front of us at exactly the right moment. Always pay attention to that. Second, I want to hear from you. What part of today's conversation hit you the hardest? Was it the visualization piece, the boundaries? I know the boundaries was a strong one for me. The idea that transformation doesn't always look beautiful. Drop a comment below or send me a message because your story matters and this community thrives when we share honesty with each other. And third, and this is important, if you found value in this conversation, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification because we are building something sacred here. A community of soul-led seekers who are done performing and ready to live authentically. Every week, I bring you the conversations like this one, raw, real, and designed to support your spiritual journey. Because here's what I know to be true. You didn't stumble onto this episode by accident. Your soul led you here. And that emptiness you've been feeling, it's not a flaw. It's a doorway. A doorway to the life that you are meant to live, the self you're meant to become, the wholeness that's been waiting for you all along. So take what served you from today's conversation, let go of what doesn't, and trust that your next step will reveal itself. I'm Jessica, and this is Awaken Your Authentic Self, where we remember who we've always been beneath the masks we've worn. Until next time, Keep listening to that whisper. It knows the way home.